So today we're going to be talking about basically the whole, you know, any concerns you might have in regards to doing van life or like, being, some sort of a nomad. But I mean, obviously van life because, that's the scary part, like you have so many questions in regards to like, where am I going to park? How am I going to make this work? Is it safe? Like how do I stay safe? How am I going to go to a washroom, like things like that, because really what you're doing when you're going to be living out of a van, even if you're just doing it, either for work temporarily or, just, on occasion, like on little trips and stuff. Maybe you're a snowbird or like, you just want to do some weekend getaways, but you don't want to like pay for, parking in campgrounds and stuff. And you want to be a little bit more free. You don't want to be tied down to a specific place. Well, this is the video for you because obviously like these concerns are normal and it's actually quite a difficult skill set to accumulate because there's a lot of different skill sets and we're going to talk about those skill sets. So essentially this video is going to be about the skill sets that you need to break out of your comfort zone and I don't want to say create a new one, but I mean at least be able to like step out of it and do it comfortably. So being uncomfortable and the discomfort, if you will. Because van life, like you see the reels on TikTok and whatever, it looks luxurious and everything. But, when you actually do it, you realize there's a lot of, compromises. And especially if you're doing it, on your own, you're building your own camper van, your own mobile base camp, then you're definitely going to want to hear what I have to say about, these skill sets. So obviously the first thing you're probably going to worry about is, where you're going to be able to find parking. So I've done a lot of videos on this very topic. You can check those out. I'll leave links in the description. So basically, there's two strategies here. There's the daytime strategy and there's a nighttime strategy. So if you break it up into that already, you're going to be like you're going to be more, I don't want to say comfortable, but you're going to know like a little bit more like what to expect because the whole goal of this lifestyle and what's going to get you in the, least amount of trouble, not that you will regardless, but like, let's say, you don't want to get the knock on the door, you've heard about that, you don't want to get it. So just don't stay in the same spot for too long. Like there are some spots where you could literally like sleep there every night if you wanted to. Like I've done a video talking about those specific types of spots because there are types, and you'll find them around major cities even, believe it or not, and inside of them. But, like just to like park at night, that's fine, but you don't want to spend the whole day there. Like you don't want to be parked there and like live there kind of thing, because I know maybe some of you want to do this whole thing to maybe avoid paying rent, like to be doing this full time. Maybe down the line you can work your way up to that, but for the time being, I would highly suggest. I mean, if you're really going to do it full time, there's strategies, and we'll talk about that in future videos. But for now, I'm assuming that you guys are not going to be starting off as full-time van lifers. So yeah, so basically the rotation. So you can have the same spot overnight. Like right now where I am now, which is in Gatineau, there's a spot I go to like every time I'm in this area, Ottawa, Gatineau, I always stay at the same spot. And I know it's because I've done my research. There's apps like Park 4 Night, and there's also the maps that I personally share. So you can find those in the description of like spots that I personally found or like, that I mark, I leave notes, that kind of stuff. So if you want to have access to that, obviously I'm mostly living and working in, the Eastern Canada. So like, or Central Eastern. So like Quebec and Ontario, but you'll find that in the description. But yeah, just doing your research, even if you just go on Google Maps and you just like kind of know your way around the land. But that's the topic for a different video, how to actually plan ahead with apps like Park 4 Night and Google Maps. I'll make a detailed video about that. But for now, it's just generally like just do your research, know your spots, have daytime spots and nighttime spots. Like I have a Google Maps list for both of those. So the overnight spots, that's the most important. The daytime spots, depending where you are, like a lot of the day, like for example, if you're in Montreal, there's not a lot of daytime spots that are like super nice that you can stay at all day and, get work done or like just be in nature, for example, and especially without paying. So that's like one thing about Montreal. But in places like Gatineau, like you have Gatineau Park. For parking is free there. You have a bunch of like really nice, beautiful nature areas where parking is free, and you can just, like stay there all day and then go to your night spot. And, you could spend, days and even maybe weeks if you really wanted to. And then there's like, what you do on the rainy days and that kind of stuff. We'll talk about that in another video. But so that's basically it. So that's the first thing you're going to want to get out of the way, is just like developing the skill to find nighttime and daytime spots and developing your repertoire, if you will. So that's already going to get rid of so much stress, and you're going to feel like a lot more comfortable on the road when you have certain spots, or like how to use truck stops, and implement those in your journey. So basically that. Now, the other thing too that you're going to want to develop, okay, on the road, is the ability to be like, resourceful, and, like if something happens. I made a video talking about the emergency roadside items you're going to want to have. Like already, if you have that and you know how to do certain things, like mechanically, you'll be a lot more confident out there, especially in the long term. So that's that. I'll leave a link to that video. But basically what I mean by that is just, get the shit done, like get the mechanic skills, learn how to change oil filter, fuel filter, tires, if you have a flat tire, how to repair one, those skills. Okay. So not like learning how to rebuild an engine. Like you don't need to know how to do that, but you do need to know how to change a tire. I guarantee it. So that's for that. And then the other thing I said, which we'll call like the third skill set. So the first skill set, like we said, was the ability to find spots, daytime and nighttime. Second is mechanical skills. And the third is just like, I guess, general, like I said, resourcefulness, life skills, whatever. Like, for example, I'll give you the perfect example. You might not have a washroom in your camper van. You might, but that's a pain in the ass with the whole septic system and whatever. If you want to avoid dealing with any of that, or a shower, personally, like in my camper van, there's no shower, there's no washroom. There's an emergency washroom, okay, which is a Reliant, what do they call it, a lugaloo. So there's that, but I rarely use it because the simplest thing you got to do is have a gym membership to Anytime Fitness, because that's the only gym I know is like that's in the States, Canada, every major city, like they're everywhere. So you have access to all of them 24/7. So you'll have access to washroom, showers, and then the next thing is like Walmarts, grocery stores, or anywhere where you have to go shopping or get supplies. Shopping centers too, even better. Like for example, in the morning when you wake up, if you go, you're hungry, obviously you're hungry in the morning, or maybe you just go do your groceries, you're doing intermittent fasting or something like that. You want to go to the washroom first thing in the morning there. If your spot, your overnight spot doesn't have any facilities nearby. So you take care of that, and then you do your first grocery run for the day kind of thing. And get supplies, whatever. So already there, you just plan it. And in the evening, maybe you go to the gym to shower and to work out and get so you just plan those, I guess call them like pillars. So it's kind of like somewhere you go in the first thing in the morning, and somewhere you go right before you go to your overnight spot. So having strategies like that's what I mean by like general life skills, planning, resourcefulness. I don't really know what to call it there, but that's the third skill set. Like just knowing where shit is, obviously learning how to use maps. That's very important. And even getting by without them sometimes if you can. So that's pretty much it, guys. So those three things, if you do that, that's going to help you overcome this whole hurdle of getting out of your comfort zone and being out on the road and living free. And because it's really psychological at the end of the day. And that's why this whole van life thing or nomadism, it's really like, it's a lifestyle that's not necessarily, like we said, a full-time lifestyle. Like we debate that topic in another video, but it's basically just a way for you to literally get out of your front door when, say, you don't have to go to work, or, you've gotten out of that 9-to-5 loop. Maybe you're a freelancer, maybe you're a digital nomad, or maybe you're just retired entirely, you're financially independent and retired and you did it early. So there's that. But that's it. So what do you do then? What are you going to spend the rest of your life doing? Well, this is kind of like what we discuss here fundamentally on this DIY camper build channel.
All right, guys, that's it for this one. If you're building something that's meant to last, whether it's a camper van, a business, or just a better way of living, I'm glad you're here. Everything I use, recommend, or offer is linked in the description. Take what works, build your own blueprint, and I'll see you in the next one.